Welcome to Hanging Out with Robert, that's me. This video contains things that I encounter throughout the day. If for some reason I complete a task and you would like to see the details, you can click on the link in the description area below. This video also contains tips and tricks that I learned throughout the years. I plan on leaving this video accessible for about 30 days. After that, you can view it through my Patreon account. Thank you very much for watching. Kicking off the Tinker Day. We got a light rain, so we got the canopy up. Getting ready to put the cylinder head on, getting ready to blow it out with some compressed air. I just cleaned off that water jacket there. I'm going to glue the seal on there. We got the starter installed, the bolt tight, the new power steering lines in from yesterday, and we got the R exhaust manifold there. But we're ready to drop this head on so we can drop the cams on. And right after we drop the head on, we're going to go ahead and set the timing on the crank. So might go ahead and do that here. We'll do it before we put the cams in. Keep moving forward. Everything's all cleaned up. Head gasket's in place. Water jacket is in place. We're going to set the head on here and start torquing that thing down. Ready to bolt the head on here with the Robert Spinner original dental floss holding the exhaust manifold gaskets on. We got this surface cleaned off with brake parts cleaner. We got the thermostat housing mounted on with two gaskets, a thick one and a small one. If you got a thick one, you don't need two, I don't think. But if you got a thin one, you want to definitely put two of those on there. So that's on and torqued on. We're going to set this head in place and bolt the water jacket on and then bolt the head down. Actually, we're going to go 2 stages of torque on the head gasket, then bolt this water jacket in. The head's set in place. We're going to tap it down with a mallet, put the head bolts in. Rocking for some reason. We got the head torqued down, thermostat housing on, water pipe bolts torqued in the back, exhaust manifold on, torqued. So we're moving right along. Next, we decided to put the external slave cylinder on, and it looked in the hole, it looked like it was plugged with something. So we thought, we'll blow it out. Put some compressed air on the back of it just to blow it out. And it blew all this stuff out of it. So if for some reason yours is apart and you want to know how to put it back together, it goes in this order. The spring goes in, then this piston goes in on top of that. The brand new one here has a lot of what looks like petroleum jelly around that. Then you put your boot on there, then you put that on and snap your boot around that end. So very simple setup, just a single piston. But that's how it goes together. We got the slave cylinder in, the slave cylinder line on the back. Got that routed up through the bracket properly and plugged in down there. That's a brand new line from FCP. Then we hooked up the hose to the reservoir. Now, I put a rag under there to catch the brake fluid, and I cut the nipple off the tip and let it drain all the way out till it was empty. And you can see the level in the reservoir, and that indicates when that fluid is out and no longer feeding the clutch cylinder system. So if you're trying to bleed this clutch and you only have the fluid up at that level, it is not getting into the fluid chamber that feeds the clutch system. So when you go to bleed this, you've got to fill this thing up higher than that. And if you look over here, that's a little bit below the max mark. It's on the bottom of the max. So you've got to put this thing up to the max mark in order to bleed your clutch. And that's going to be to the top of the Volvo thing there. So unless you're up here this high, you're not bleeding any fluid. into that clutch system. You'll be there all day. Next, we're going to put this shift cable brackets in and put some bearings in the end of the shift cables because those bushings are torn out and worn out, so that you have good smooth shifting experience. And that bracket goes on one way. If you notice there, it's got a notch there, and that kind of prevents you from putting that bracket on backwards. If you come here, you see this hole. If you drew a straight line across the front of the bracket, that line would cut right through that bolt hole. That's the forward side. This is the back side. The hole wouldn't be cut through. So your thing goes together like that. It's got the rubber pieces in there. It's got those. But this is how your shift cable bracket goes on. This is the front. That's the back. When you lay it on there, that guide pin sits on the side of the bracket over here. If you try to put it on backward, that guide pin hits the bracket. Don't let it bolt down all the way. So put this in here like this, and you'll be good to go. Just serviced the transmission. I made sure the service bolt was tight right there. I made sure the drain bolt was tight, and we filled it up until fluid is right about coming out of the axle port there. So you see the fluid level, and it's leaning, so we may be able to put a little more in. We'll check it later, but it took 2 liters of the Volvo stuff. Our brake fluid failed the brake fluid test. Has a little bit of moisture in there, so we're going to replace all of this brake fluid through all the calipers. Since we got the cylinder head screwed in, we're going to go ahead and put the crank on the mark, so we don't forget to do that before we load in these cams and things. So we're going to roll that round up to the mark. Then we're going to put spark plugs in. Roll that crank around. Got it perfect on that mark down there. See that notch and that nipple on the oil pump? Perfect. Bled all the calipers, the whole brake system. Then we bled the clutch system. The clutch is engaging good, and it is returning. And this power bleeder, man, really helps this situation a lot easier. If you could afford it, these things are like, I don't know, 50, 60 bucks. Replacing your brake fluid is awesome with these. And I got the fluid close to the top. That's the max line. Filling in there good, so we should be good to go. It's time to take a lunch break. Back from lunch, planning our next strike. I guess we're going to clean up these parts for the brake bleeder. Close up this brake fluid reservoir and go get those bearings for the shifter cables and hook those up. Had the perfect tools for pressing this bearing in here, getting it set right. I used a nickel because the nickel actually fits in the hole on the shifter cable. Put a wrench under it and use the vice grips. Put the nickel on top, wrench on the bottom, and squeeze it together with the vice grip. Pop those in. We got the bearings and everything in. About to lock in the cables, and he remembered he had a short shifter kit. So we are going to install the short shifter kit from Snap. That takes about 25% of your shifter travel away from you. Kind of shifting with a newer vehicle instead of an older vehicle. So I'm going to get a C-clamp. Take this socket here, this socket here, and press those skater bearings out of there. Got the air box and everything out and disconnected the old bushings out of the cables. Number 3 says place the new bracket into existing bracket, curved edge lined up. So you want to set this on here like this. The curved edges lined up with each other. The old bushing post should slip into the large hole on the new bracket. We got that. With the curvature of the snap piece lined up with the curvature of the original bracket, you want to put a little center punch hole in the middle of those holes so that you could drill a hole through this original bracket. So we got a little mark there. We're going to put a little punch there. Then we're going to drill a hole through there so we can mount this. And depending on how you want your shifter in your car, you will pivot it this way or pivot it this way on the installation. So we're going to start in the middle. I used that bit. I got all the way through. Don't be caught by surprise like me. I thought that thing was hollow. It is solid. So I went all the way in. I'm going to wipe it off. Set the piece on there to make sure that I got it pretty much centered. And then I'm going to go to the next bigger bit. Took about 5 minutes to drill that hole. Our second bit was biting too good and the tip broke. Unfortunate for me, it broke in the hole. So I'm going to go under it and try to tap the pieces of that drill bit out. And then maybe start with another bit. I might have to start a little bit faster so it don't grab so much, because the drill was grabbing and it was creating a hammering effect, and that broke the tip of the bit. Getting too much of a bite. Heck, you could almost see it sticking up there. I started with this 5/64, went up to the 1/8, and then I had to jump up to the 1/4" bit. And I think the 1/4" bit is the size I need. Let me find the screw that's got to go through there. That is the screw right there. So let me set the bracket on there. I'm using magnets to pick up all these shavings. But let me go ahead and set the bracket on there and see if this screw will go through there. And there it is. The screw does go through there. Should go through all 3 positions. And like I said, that changes how your shifter lays in neutral inside the car. This way, it'll be closer to the center console or back seat. This way, it should be in the standard position. And in this hole, it should be closer to the dash whenever it's all said and done. Going through with 3 bits slowly with oil, it took 30 minutes. So that's not too bad. Again, they keep saying F drill bit, but a F drill bit at 0.0257 is a little bit larger than a 1/4", just barely larger. This will allow the 1/4" bolt to go through it. The drill doesn't have to be exact F, but it's recommended to use close to that as possible. But you see where mine did fit through there. Now that you have your hole all the way through there, they say deburr it. So you want to take a larger drill bit and just knock the burr off of the top and the bottom. And then clean up all the oil and the shavings. So you take a much larger drill bit, set it on there, and spin it around just a little bit. That'll deburr the hole. Do it top and bottom. If for some reason you can't get your bolt through the hole, you may have to make this hole a little larger or these holes a little larger. No big deal, but it's got to be close. Mine's worked, so I'm good to go. Next, we're going to mount the cable to this bracket. If you put it in this hole, which would make your shifting shorter, it binds the cable a little bit. So we're going to use this hole here, and we're going to put the nut and lock washer under that so that we can set the tightness of it and not put too much stress on the bushing that'll be on top of that. So this is how your hardware is going to go. You're going to take your bushing with your nut like that. You put that through the top of the cable. Then you put this right on top of here, and your cable's going to be on top of that. Then you screw this into this threaded portion of here until it's snug And once it's snug, you want to back off about a quarter of a turn, and then you screw that lock washer and that nut under the cable there until that's tight, because you don't want any tightness here that will stop your cable from being able to pivot a little bit as you shift. So your nut and lock washer is going to be snug, a little tight on the bottom of that, but this up here will not be tight going down in here. You'll have enough play to spin that around. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I just put this on finger tight so that this pivots. Now I'm going to put the lock washer and the nut under there and hold this at this position so that it doesn't get any tighter on that, and I'm going to snug the nut under there. So right here, I got this finger tight and this still pivots. You could even back that up just a little bit, about it here. I'm going all the way finger tight with it. I'm going to take this up. Got the wrong size tool here. Let me grab the right tool. It's a 13. Back that up just a little bit, about an eighth of a turn. Now I'm going to hold this here, and I'm going to tighten that down on the bottom, that nut. Let me grab the right size tool to tighten it down. So it's crushing that crush washer. So that nut down there is tight, but this up here just flops around nice, and it's not loose, but it does pivot. That's what you want. Next, you want to put this on that hole there, and then put that bolt down through there. Put the bolt through there, put the washer under it, and then the nut under it, and tighten that down. And that's 11 on top and 11 on the bottom. Guys, remember, this stuff is not lug nuts. Don't over tighten this stuff. Maybe 5 to 8 foot-pounds if you had to put a torque on it. And you could put thread lock on it if you want. But that's your end product. Your shifting area on the inside is going to be shorter. Next, you install this driver side cable. You put the spacer on there from snap, you put the cable on, you put the washer on from the car, then you put the clip on. And this is the position before the short shift bracket is installed. It's just using their bushing. This is neutral, going from third to fourth. Go ahead up to third and let it go. Come back to fourth. Let it go. So that's how far your travel is, third to fourth, before the short shifter bracket's installed. What you see there is neutral. He's going to push it up into third gear. Let it go. That's how far it is when it's up to third gear. He's going to pull it down to fourth gear. And that's how far it is in fourth gear. This is after the short shifter kit's installed. The shop that redid the cylinder head, made it true, cleaned it up. They spray some kind of paint product, I think, on top of the head so it looks nice and pretty and new. But they also painted the mating surface, and I don't know if that will mess with our ability to get this to seal right with the anaerobic sealant and stuff like that. So I'm gonna brush that off. That may clean off with some acetone or something, but I'm gonna go ahead and brush it off real quick so that my mating surface is raw metal like there, and in my cam journals like there, instead of possibly having something come loose in my cam journals. Don't want that to happen. Kind of on a fast track to get this cylinder head on, cam cover on before we get rained out and it gets too dark. So my phone is shutting down. I guess my battery's dead. I wasn't watching my phone and the battery died. Can't really remember what the last clip was, but I got the top of the cylinder head all cleaned off. I got the bottom of the cam cover all cleaned off. I set the spark plug well seals in place. They were a little tight. One of them popped off. I seen it, pushed it back on there. I got the cams cleaned up, any tarnish off of them, especially in the seal area. I put in the front cam seals. He has a locking tool, so we locked up the back of the cams. I put the anaerobic sealant on there. We have the Volvo anaerobic sealant. We rolled that on there, perfect layer. We lubricated the cam journals with full synthetic oil. We didn't have assembly lube, so we did our best there. After I got it all rolled on, I got the cam seals on the front. I cleaned a little bit of space off on the sprocket so I could see the marks. I locked the cams in. He actually had a drawdown tool kit. So we screwed these into the spark plug number 2 and 4 and drew down the cam cover while I beat it with a mallet. The only thing about these aftermarket drawdown tools is they're too wide to get your bolts around them. So we could get all the bolts in except for those 8. So with the cover drawn down, this screws in the spark plug holes and then you crank it down, beating it down with the mallet. When we got it all down, we put all the screws in except for those 8. And then with the screws snug, I pulled these tools off and spun the last 8 bolts in, and then I torqued them in the proper sequence, starting from the middle, working my way out. So that worked out a lot quicker. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the spark plugs in because the moisture is merciless around here, and I don't want those cylinder areas exposed to the moisture in this area. Even though we wet the pistons with oil, I want to seal that up. And I'm not going to be able to seal this up, but we're going to spray some WD-40 lube in these intake holes so none of that stuff rusts. See, no rust in there now. And then we're probably going to put a piece of tape over that intake so that it just doesn't sweat or build moisture or none of that stuff. I'm going to set a piece of tape over that, put the oil cap on here, and we'll be done for the day. As you can see, it's dark and it's raining, so we're cleaning up. We got the canopy over us, which is good. Not sure if you've seen us with that short shifter kit fully installed, but probably did. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.